Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Peter Abraham. I'm a second career registered nurse with experience in advanced illness, specifically those that would qualify for either palliative care or hospice care. Those are two separate services. I'm also a certified end-of-life doula through the International Doula Life Movement. I'm one of their part-time instructors. I'm also an avid book author. If you're new to this channel, welcome. Thank you so much for taking the time to visit. In this channel, we talk about issues related to death and dying. After all, we are all going to die. Shouldn't we be prepared? I'll have videos for my fellow hospice nurses. Many of the 21 books I wrote for hospice nurses are found throughout the U.S. at different agencies. I was so thankful when Shelley Henry, one of the founders of the Amity Group, shared with me that a client in Los Angeles gives my Mastering Hospice Eligibility book to all of their nurses. Thank you so much for that. Um, there's that. There's videos for my fellow holistic nurses. Several weeks back, we went over how to determine the stage of any type of dementia. There's at least 13 known types. Some may argue that there's 100. Alzheimer's disease is the most common, but there's a way to stage them rather accurately, or at least close enough for the layperson. So I'll have videos on that because dementia is a chronic disease that becomes terminal towards the end. I'll have discussions for my fellow end-of-life doula. That's going to be the topic for today's video. I've been doing a series on this. Um, and I also have books for my fellow end-of-life doulas. One of the books that I'm turning into a 16-week course through the International Life Movement is Crucial End-of-Life Conversations. So if all goes well in January of next year, starting January 13th through I think April 30th is the ending date. Twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays for 90 minutes, an hour and a half each, 48 hours altogether. There's going to be a course for end-of-life professionals who want to be able to have very difficult, challenging conversation over their loved ones not eating and family struggling to support. In fact, at the date of this filming, on the Slow Medicine group in Facebook. That's a group that looks at chronic illness and looking at different alternatives for treating illnesses, some the Western way, some the Eastern way. And it's not dealing with people who are immediately terminal, but sometimes they have cases there. And there was somebody saying, if their loved one's on hospice, one of the family members was trying to force feed a loved one. That's a critical discussion area. Because if somebody is sound asleep, would you would you force their mouth open and start putting food in, whether syringe or other methods? Don't look aghast, please. But I've walked into patient rooms where the patient is in the equivalent of a coma. They are not awake. They are dying. And a family member is holding their head up and pouring a glass of water down their throat with the intention of love. They're not trying to cause them to aspirate and cause them to die quicker. But a lot of people think, oh, if the dying person is not drinking or eating, they're starving and dehydrating to death. And that is not the case. So these are difficult conversations. So moving forward, the topic for today's video is close to my heart, and it's been a topic that's being asked about lately. What do you charge? How do you get your clients? And so I'd like to go over that in the discussion for today. Before we dive into today's topic of how do you charge, how do you determine what to charge, how do you get paid, I'd like to take a moment and ask you what I ask myself one to several times a day. What are you grateful for? Well, Peter, why are you asking me? You don't know me from anybody. You don't have to put in the comments below. This is a non-judgmental channel. There's no wrong answers. But I believe that if you work on building resilience That's something that you may be born with a portion of, but something that you can expand upon by building on it, by practicing it, by creating a habit out of it. When the storms in your life are crushing you, you're less likely to be crushed. You're more likely to be able to push back and say, I'm going to get through this. Now, for me, there are three pillars. We talk about one on this channel. For me, the first pillar is Christ Jesus. The second pillar is forgiveness. The third pillar is gratitude. If you want to talk about what you're working through forgiveness, feel free. I'm still working on a lot of issues from last year. That every time I was sharing at the men's breakfast that I was just recently at, every time I think I've forgiven somebody or dealt with a situation, a memory will come back. And Jacob, one of the men at the men's breakfast, gave me some things to work through. So I appreciate you, Jacob, if you're ever watching this. But on gratitude, what are you grateful for? So what I'm grateful for is a couple things. One, I'm so grateful for my wife that helps ground me. I am autistic. I'm classified on the high functioning. Now, high functioning doesn't mean Rain Man, if you've seen that movie. I have a level of intelligence. I try not to go there in terms of IQ and other factors because some people might take that as like, oh, you think you're better than me because you have this or that. High functioning for me is that I could actually mask a lot of my autism symptoms so that most people can't tell that I'm autistic. It makes it awkward at times, especially if the mask comes off and then the people are either scared or in shock. That's something I have to deal with as part of my disease process. But I'm grateful for my wife, who's one of my God and my wife, and I have a small circle that are my standing stones, so to speak. I'm grateful for those who have been buying and reading my books. I'm grateful for Aspen and Michelle and others who are saying, hey, this book that I just mentioned, this is a 10 out of 10. Now, I do have to laugh because trying to get somebody, actually, could you give me a 5-star rating on Amazon is like pulling teeth. But they'll tell me in other venues, just like Shelley telling me about this hospice agency, about my putting the master in hospice eligibility. But I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that I'm almost to my goal for creating this class. I'm working on doing 2 to 4 presentations in Canva instead of PowerPoint. They're Canva presentations per week, along with case studies, learning objectives, quizzes, tests, breakout rooms, the whole 9 yards. I'm working on trying to get a certain number done. I'll share with my wife this evening. I would like to get this course completely ready, published ready by the end of October, so November's free. Like I'm currently taking an advanced life planning class with Pam Carter. It's a wonderful, wonderful program. I signed up for a grief counseling, grief coaching class. I'll be a certified grief coach. That's through Lindy, Linde. I don't want to say a last name and mix her up with Pam's name because I don't know if they're both Carter. They're not related to as far as I know. But I'm taking Lindy's program through the International Doula Life Movement. That runs August 12th through, I forget what date in December. So I'm trying to back off on some of the classes I'm taking in order to just wind down a little bit. And I do encourage that for all of you. If you have a lot going on in your life, allow for some downtime. That really helps. And so I'm grateful for that. And I'm grateful for my friends like Ted Hopkins and Jacob. And Jacob, he's been giving me advice for the past several months, and he may have told me his last name. My short-term memory is like this. But I'm grateful for that. Now, in terms of today's topic, how do end-of-life doulas get paid? How do you determine what you charge? What's a fair fee? and so on and so forth. A number of people who are going into this space are unaware or maybe partially aware that this is a private practice. End-of-life doulas in the United States of America are not covered by any insurance. Let that sink in for a moment. We do not accept any insurance. This is not just me. This is not just me in Kentucky. In all 50 states, as of August of 2025, heading into September, end-of-life doulas cannot be paid through insurance. I'm hoping down the road that will change, and you got to be careful what you hope for. Because if insurance pays, that means insurance might regulate how much time we can spend with a individual. I don't want that. I want the opportunity to spend what time they need with them. I don't want big government watching over me and saying you spent too much time. Or on the topic of fees, I was doing homework because I'm looking, I shouldn't say I'm looking, I'm already telling people I go by sliding scales, but I'm continuing to do research on sliding scales. But as part of the research for this evening, I was watching some YouTube videos on therapists saying, depending on what state you're in or what your licensure is, and especially if you accept insurance, you can't do sliding scales. Wow, I didn't know that. So there's a pro for not being covered by insurance. From a point of view, if you watch my video about what does certification mean, what does being a certified end-of-life doula, and I'm certified, what does it mean? It only means a graduation certificate. There is no consumer protection involved as there is for CNAs, CPAs, LPNs, RNs, lawyers, even insurance agents have to they go through an accreditation, a governing body. If you're an insurance agent, if you sell life insurance, there's consumer protection. Well, right now, there's no consumer protection other than the Better Business Bureau, which really isn't a real source, depending on your point of view. But to stay on topic for how do you charge? So we're private pay. Now, there are some end-of-life doulas who do work for a hospice and or palliative care organization. Remember, palliative care is a separate type of service. Hospice is separate. Hospice is palliative care at end of life, but there is genuine palliative care agencies out there that are not prognosis based, meaning that you could have 10, 20 years to live and you want to receive all the treatments in the world. There are palliative care services that allow you to do that, and some of them hire doulas. There are more hospice providers in palliative care doing this, but so that you're aware, it's still extremely rare for a hospice provider to hire an end-of-life doula. And then there's a further complication that now that end-of-life doula that is an employee of a hospice agency is bound by that company's policies and procedures. That ranges from everything from vaccination status to tetanus testing to uh, masking and a whole bunch of other things. And I'm not bringing these up to say I don't believe them or I do believe them. I just mean that there's added rules and policies and regulations, including the potential to be told, again, like with being, if you were paid by insurance, oh, you cannot spend more than 45 minutes with the client, or you can only spend an hour. So if you work for a palliative care provider or a hospice provider, you as a doula may find your scope and your time limited. There's the pro, they get the clients for you. They give you a paycheck. There's a pro that you're most likely going to have some type of benefits. And you don't have to worry that it takes a lot of work to be your own boss. I'm going through this on my own journey with Compassion Crossing. Eventually it'll focus. I am hoping that it'll eventually, here we go. Sorry about that. And so, I'm running my own business and doing my own marketing and so on. And that takes a lot of work and a lot of making an effort to put one foot in front of the other and consistently show up. So it's easier to be an employee from a point of view. And you get more consistent paychecks on top of it. But most of us that are out there as end-of-life doulas, we're either operating out of three scopes. There are those end-of-life doulas that operate from the volunteer perspective. Some of them will literally be a hospice companion volunteer. And to the degree that hospice allows them, this is the key. If you become a hospice companion volunteer or a hospice volunteer, regardless of the nomenclature, you are under the rules. Even as a volunteer, your own time, you're under their rules and their regulations and their policies and their guidelines. I'm not saying don't go there. Just understand that when you sign on the dotted line, you're giving away some of your freedom and some of your autonomy. But there are end-of-life doulas who treat this as maybe they're in retirement, they might be getting Social Security, other income from other sources, and they say this is a way that they're giving back to the community. And they might do this even privately without being a volunteer for XYZ company. They're literally their own practice, but they're doing it for free. There's others that operate on a pure sliding scale component. So I'm currently on, and I'll put the link in the description below, supportedjourneys.com. Supportedjourneys.com. So at supportedjourneys.com, there's an end-of-life doula. Now I don't know her personally. Her name's Lori, Lori. So she's an end-of-life doula. She gives you, her story, and she gives you, I think that's Anita Proficient. She's a member of NITA. Oh, I gotta love this. She's a fellow graduate. I didn't know this going in. This just made my evening. She's a fellow graduate of the International Dual Life Movement. I did not plan this. Those of you who've been watching my videos, I don't script, I don't teleprompt. Some of them are impromptu. But like, wow, I'm just scrolling down. I didn't catch the logos before. Um, but she operates on a pure sliding scale. And there are those that do this. And in terms about how her sliding scale, it ranges from $0 to $100 an hour. She has tier one, and this is on her website. Tier one, $0 to $50 an hour. And she gives you some guidelines. Like tier one is, I frequently stress about meeting basic needs and I don't always achieve them. That's poverty. I have debt that sometimes prohibits me from meeting my basic needs. That's below poverty. I work through survival credit card debt. I have I have no access to savings. I have no or very limited expendable income. I qualify for government assistance, including food stamps and health care. My family doesn't have any assets. I send money to my family when I'm able. I rent lower end properties. I have unstable housing. This includes the unhoused. So bless Lori's heart. And so that you're aware, this is a lot of what I feel in terms of how, and I'll get into how I'm operating towards the end of the video. She has tier two, 50 to 75 an hour. I'm not going to do all the reading. I'm not trying to purposely make this a long video. Those of you who've been watching know I tend to be verbose. I'm trying to be better at that. And then tier three is they're not necessarily wealthy, but these would be at least in the very lower tier of middle class, if not middle to upper. I've never been able to wrap my head around what middle class means. I come from poverty myself. being raised in coal mining territory, my dad being unemployed the majority of almost every year. I still remember the government cheese program times where we only had food because of the government growing up. But tier 3, she's 75 to 100 an hour. So there are end-of-life doulas that operate only on a sliding scale. And then there's the last part where they have fixed pricing. I'm in the middle. I am in the middle. I have fixed pricing. Before I go over my pricing, because I apologize, my short-term memories like this, since I don't use a script, sometimes I run ahead of myself and I have to backpedal. I'm trying to be better with that. So when you look at what should you charge, I recommend, let me just pull it up. Yeah, I'm going to the right site. If you're an end-of-life doula, and or let's say you just want to know what you could charge for caregiving services at large, go to care.com, care.com. So www.care.com, and you're going to put in your zip code, and you're going to search, and you're going to do, I want to find care. You're not trying to find a job, you're going to find care. And then put in your care. Now, either go with senior care or adult care. Those two would be closely aligned for end-of-life doulas. And I'm not sure yet for the type of care. And um, I'm going to pick companionship. And we just stick with the companionship. And give me a moment. It's going. I actually should have went to tutorial mode to walk you through. Um, Give me a second. Let me give it a email address. And one moment. It might bounce me because I'm using a fake fake email. Okay. Oh my word. Okay, give me one. Oh my word. Recurring. Yes, I should have did this. Okay. The average, sorry for the delay. The average for Berea, Kentucky for having a companion. Remember, doulas are non-medical support people. So you don't command necessarily the rate of a CNA. They're genuinely certified. You're not able to provide the medical support. So a companion in Berea, Kentucky, the average rate is 10 to 20 an hour. So the average rate's 10 to 20 an hour. Now, in my particular case, I am a registered nurse. My license is active. I'm unencumbered, and it's multi-state. On top of that, this is going on 9 years of being a nurse, 6 of it dedicated towards hospice and palliative care. I have precepted, blah, 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 blah. I've written books, blah, 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 blah. So I could do more. But if I was just, and stop, I don't have my roller handy to smack me. I almost went to say just an end-of-life doula. I don't want to do that to anyone because no one is just a nurse, just a doula, just a housekeeper. That everyone is who they are and important. So if I was only an end-of-life doula with no other certification, no additional training, I would probably be looking at, me personally, I'd be probably looking at the $20 an hour range. I'm not telling you. Remember, if you watch other videos, I will say, you do you, me do me. So in some geographic areas, like Anna Adams shared that when she started offering doula services in Texas, she did something similar in terms of market research. And initially she did 35 an hour, and she's a lot higher now. I'll let her share her current rate if you want to ask her. So geographically will vary. Some areas are $100 to $200 an hour. So don't let the Berea number say, I can't make a living at $20 an hour or $10 an hour. You will charge what you will charge. Remember, you do you, but do market research. Because to give you an example why this is important, is just 30 minutes before I started filming this, somebody posted on one of the most active end-of-life Facebook groups, why would I want to hire one end-of-life doula if I have a budget? People, like, money doesn't grow on trees, and don't, do the jokes on you can print more money. But I have a budget. I could hire either 2 aides or 1 doula. Why should I hire the doula? Now, that was the only just so you know, that was the entirety of the context. That makes it hard to answer that question because I don't know what emotional, psychosocial, I don't know the whole need scope. That's one where, in order to really accurately answer the question, you actually need to do a free consultation for about 30 minutes minimum, maybe less, but I go for the 30 to try to find out what the whole scope, what are the real needs. Because if the needs are that her loved one needs to have wound care done, well, an end-of-life doula cannot do wound care. I can as a nurse, but an end-of-life doula that they have, and just so that we want to be very, very clear, let's say they're an end-of-life doula that's a CNA, they still can't do wound care. They'd have to have a LPN, RN, nursing practitioner, a higher license in order to do wound care. In most states, I want to put in the fine print because there might be one state in the U.S. that would say since family members can provide wound care, they'll allow X, Y, Z. So let that fine print out there. But in most states, you need to have a medical license in order to do wound care. And now, just so you know, the aides aren't going to do wound care. Aides, CNA, home health attendants are not going to do wound care. But like if it's a home health attendant, because they're aides too, then a doula can actually compete. Because an end-of-life doula could do housekeeping. I'm not saying that you would want to do housekeeping, but home health attendants can do housekeeping. But if they get into personal care, like they're giving the patient a bed bath, that's medical support. Now, I know some of you watching, that's not medicine, so that you are completely, I'm being crystal. Look this up, verify what I'm saying, comment below if I'm wrong. I will not be offended. I love learning. Maybe your state, maybe your geographic area is different, but giving somebody a bath outside of a family member or a friend, in terms of being paid, you need to have certifications, licensures. Remember I mentioned end-of-life doulas, death doulas are non-medical support. They are literally the equivalent of a companion who is trained to educate. We are educators. We educate, we encourage, we could provide guidance without making the decision for you, meaning that here are pros and cons. We can't say I should say this, we should not say, if I were you, do this, because we don't want to influence the decision. But we're non-medical support. So if you have a fixed budget and she needed somebody to bathe her loved one, now we can hand somebody their medications. Here, putting your hand. Somebody may argue it's a gray area if you put it in their mouth. To me, I'd be careful because if somebody walked in and saw you, you could be in trouble. But there's limits. We're non-medical support. So if a person needed CNAs, true certifications, true consumer protection, and they are medical support personnel, and they had a tight budget, then it gets hard. This is part of why you need to do market research as to what people can afford in your geographic area. Now, in terms of coming to me, so I did my homework. on care.com. And because I could do more, I was looking more expanded. Like here, the search that I did was companionship in Berea, which is 40403. Companionship was showing $10 to $20 an hour. But when I looked for CNAs, then it was showing, and I'm a registered nurse, so registered nurses are a higher scope of practice. So, but care.com doesn't give. It's literally for CNA and below. So unless I missed a checkbox or something. So when I did CNAs, the rate was 10 to 35. So what I did for my rate, and I know I have some of my fellow graduates from IDLM will say that I have underpriced myself. I'm being transparent as I'm talking to you. I determined that for 2025, my hourly rate is $50 an hour. How did I come up with 50 if the CNA is 35? Is it because I think I'm worth 15 more dollars in the top rate? No. What I looked at is what are registered nurses being paid in Madison County, Kentucky, if I were to work for somebody. Now, Hospice Care Plus, who is one of, I should say, a local hospice provider. They have an inpatient unit in Richmond, Kentucky. They advertise. They're frequently looking for people on Indeed.com, and they're advertising that they would pay a hospice registered nurse from $30 to $37 an hour. Rates in Kentucky are low compared to other states. When I look at what hospitals are paying registered nurses, the rates go up higher to the low 40s. We're talking like 41 to 42 an hour. When I look at public health, Madison County Public Health Department, I don't have the rate memorized because they do the penny thing where it's like 21 and change to 25 or 26 and change, but it's yes, that low. CNAs in Kentucky can actually get paid more than registered nurses working in public health. That was eye-opening. And I'm not trying to criticize. It was like, gee, if you're working a CNA in a facility, you are more likely than not getting paid as much as a registered nurse working in public health. That was eye-opening. So I looked at these rates, and I do understand. I ran a business. I ran DynamicNet.net, DynamicNet Inc. It's now owned by Jeffrey Klonsky out of Little Elm, Texas. So I ran a business, and I understand that at $50 an hour, in this line of work, I cannot count on, how to phrase, if you're a W-2 employee now and you say, oh, I'm budgeting and everything else, there are 2,080 hours in a work year, 40 hours a week, 52 weeks a year. Do the math, 2,080. And some people, if they don't get paid for the vacation they take, it might be, 50 weeks times 40, 2,000 hours. So as an end-of-life doula, I know I am not going to be booking clients to make 2,000 hours, let alone 2080. So I know from that perspective, $50 an hour is extremely low in terms of if that's what all I was living on. This is why, as you do your homework, you should be going to other doula websites and seeing what they charge. There are some end-of-life doulas that are charging $250 an hour. And if you think that's way too high, maybe that's astronomically high, you should consider how many hours per week and how many hours per month, how many hours per year end-of-life doulas are working, because we are private pay. Because if you're doing this business correctly, and as I share correctly, I want to be crystal clear, my opinion only. You're going to run your business your way. For me, correctly means and I have this on my website on compassioncrossing.info, I am picky as to how many clients I'm taking on. And it's not because I'm lazy, it's because of the opposite. Number one, I don't want to burn out. And number two, I want to have the time to meet the needs of my clients. I want to have the time that if they call me at 2 a.m. in the morning, that I'm not so exhausted from whatever I went through, I can't meet their needs. This is my way of making sure that they get the highest quality service. So I went with 50 because I thought it was a good round number above the low 40s for working in the hospital. I went with 50s because in the area that I live, there are many pockets of poverty. And I'm 62, and for many, that's actually very young. And for some, it's old. But I've seen a lot in my short time. I don't want anyone who lacks the means, who needs a support system, somebody who will be their person. I don't want to walk away from them because they can't pay me. So if I have too high of a standard rate, they may look and walk away and not even get to the point of asking me and negotiating with me what else can I do for them. I don't want to scare them away. So like when I went to the free will clinic, where Helen and many lawyers, they did 33 free wills. And 33, some of you may say that doesn't sound like a lot, but when you consider that most of these lawyers were spending several hours per will, they started doing this at 10:30 a.m. and the last person out of the building was 4 p. I think it was between 3:30 and 4. Several hours per person, getting them notarized, witnessed. I was a witness for one of them, and they were asking, they were doing this correctly. 33. I had the opportunity to meet with several people. I got one extremely hot lead that if all goes well, I have a meeting set up on September 4th. I will have a paying client. I have two, I should say, one lukewarm and one, I don't know what's less than lukewarm and not cold lead. I've reached out to the one that's lukewarm. I haven't heard back. But in terms of how I present myself with the living will, me personally, and this is based on the 50 an hour. So when you come up with your hourly rate, you should look at packages. Like your living will should be, my personal opinion, treat it like a package. Because if you say to somebody, whether it's 250 an hour, 50 an hour, 20 an hour, 10, this is what I charge, they have no idea what the ending cost is going to be. Well, I need an advance directive. How much will you charge? Well, I charge 50 an hour. Well, how does that work? Do I give you a deposit? Yeah, 50. Well, can you give me a quote? And it can get, the longer it takes, the more they're likely to go out the door. So for me, my living will is $150 per person, $280 for a couple. I give like a $20 discount for I don't want to use the word married because not everybody's married, but couple. They're being done at the same time, not at separate dates and times. I'm meeting them and working through the system. But as I share with people what my rates are, I let them know up front it's $150 per individual, $280 for a couple, but I also operate on a sliding scale because I don't want to turn away somebody who's not able to afford my services. And like for the person who I'm meeting with on the 4th, they were okay with 150. So if all goes well, I'll get full price. So in terms of my other service offerings, like I'm offering, because I am a registered nurse, I can do medication reconciliation. It does not require a doctor's order to review meds. I can review the meds. I can call the pharmacies and go through all this work. I want to be very clear what the ending product is. The ending product is I don't change their prescriptions. I don't discontinue them. I don't adjust them. I give them written recommendations of what to take to the doctor in order to either have them discontinued, taper off, dose adjusted, new medications added, etc. So I give them a pathway. And so even that is based on the $50 an hour. So if you watch my other video, which I have adjusted the thought process, if I did do a video where I went into tutorial mode, that the screen, little image of me, and you'd see the Word document, like my onboarding. For the medication reconciliation, I'm still sticking with $25 per medication, but I have a $50 minimum in order to say those cases where I only want you to do one pill because it does have the potential to lead to phone calls. And from a point of view on the low end where they only have one or two medications, they may actually be getting the equivalent, like even if they pay $50, for example, I may be only getting paid minimum wage depending on the complexity of the medication in question. But because I did want to do this per pill, the reason I did it per pill is if you have only 2 to 5 pills, I didn't want to say $250, but if you do have 20 pills, 20 times 25, I want to get a fair pay. And then similar for legacy projects, I went through and say, if I'm going to do a legacy correct, and I'm talking about mapping it out. I'm not talking about completing the legacy. I'm talking about coming up with a material list, coming up with a blueprint, a step-by-step instructions of who does what, aka you're the conductor. That takes about 2 hours for someone like me to do that. If you could do it quicker, great for you. Teach me your ways. Maybe you could sell me on hiring you to teach you to do it more efficiently. And I'm not saying that sarcastically, but for me, it's 2 hours. So for that, I have $100. I offer companionship services, which because I'm a nurse, I have it under the wellness check category, where I will go however often either the patient themselves or it might be a family member wants me to check in on their loved ones. Maybe they live out of state and they want me to go visit their parent or parents. And so I have that at, again, it's based off $50 an hour. So it's $50 a visit. I'm doing visit. It may sound like you're doing visit rates, but it says it has in my marketing, my sales material, up to an hour. Doesn't guarantee an hour. It's up to an hour because I might have a case where I won't rush leaving. People who know me know I take my time, but maybe I go and it's a 45-minute visit. I'm still getting paid the $50. And if it goes longer, I'm weird. I'll let it ride most of the time. But I have $50 per individual, $90 if it's a couple. It's still, and so that you're aware of my marketing, I have that it's like it goes up to a 90-minute visit if it's a couple. So they're not getting the whole two hours, 2 hours worth. So you come up with your hourly rate and then you come up with your packages. And some of them, like I have a service, visual sitting, if you want me to sit with a loved one. Now for that one, because visual sitting, even though they may ask me, because I am a nurse, could I give them their morphine or lorazepam or any other the medications on when they're due while I'm sitting vigil? I understand I can do that. So when I give you the rate, I want you to understand I took this into consideration. But for me, please understand where my heart is, because that's why why I work in end of life space, why I love hospice, why I love palliative care, why I love being an end of life doula. My space, my heart is for the human being, the person who is dying, and their family members. Yes, I have to get paid. I have bills to pay. But like for this is my vigil sitting. That's one I didn't rate at my nursing rate at 50 an hour. That one I'm doing at 25 an hour. And on top of that, I'm going to families and saying, for every 2 hours that you book, I will donate 1 hour. A maximum time for any one day is 6 hours. So basically, they pay for 4, they get 2 for free. I'm there for 6 hours. I do that from the perspective of when I give of myself, I'm giving everything that I have. If I'm sitting vigil with somebody, I want to know what music that I should be playing. Should I use aromatherapy or would that offend them? Is it okay for me to silently pray or just be silent? Is it okay to touch their hand? What does the family want? And I'm giving my all 100%. I'm not going to be there. I will not be there on my iPhone playing games. I might be reading a book to pass time, but my attention is going to be on their breathing pattern, on are they comfortable? Do I need to call the hospice provider? Do I need to call the family? So that's why the 6 hour limit, because even though I could work an 8 hour day, what I didn't want to do, by the way, with the reason I didn't go 8 is, remember I said for every 2 they buy, they get 1 for free. So if we went up further up the ladder, that might push it into a 9 or 10 hour, and I wanted to stay 8 hours or less in terms of giving quality time without burning out. So in terms of coming down to the landing zone, end of life doula is private practice. I take cash. I prefer either check or credit card. I am set up both with Stripe and with Square.com. I did get my, I don't want to go and, I should have had it handy. I did get my Square.com gives you a free reader. So I have an attachment that plugs into the lightning jack of my phone where I could either tap or slide in their credit card. So that's how I get paid. And depending on the service, there's some sort of like the living will. When I have my meeting on the 4th, I don't say give me the $150. That's a data collection meeting where um, I have oh my word, Form City, my notepad, and a whole bunch of other things where I'm going to be taking notes and exploring feelings, feeding tubes, pain management. Do they have pets? There's so much that needs to go into a living will that's not covered by most attorneys in most other places. And I do cover at least a portion of that. Excuse me for turning my head. I did write a book, Beyond the Living Will, Creating Advanced Directives, where Martin Lewis is the inspiration for this book. He's one of my Facebook friends. And I, uh, I believe I could say this truthfully, that I helped him work through his mother's, I shouldn't say mother, his mother being on hospice services for a number of different issues. So this particular book looks at different considerations that should be taking place when somebody's doing a living will. Since I wrote this before my time with Pam Carter, who is the instructor at IDLM for the Advanced Life Planning, I am being transparent. There might be areas in that book that need updates. For example, there's a dementia directives. There's dementia directives, and so yay for fast focus. So dementia directives and what it takes you through. If you're having mild dementia, do you want to live as long as you can, receive treatments to prolong life, to receive comfort only? If you're moderate dementia, severe dementia, plans. There's Kentucky actually has two sets of different advance directives. That part, by the way, is a little bit confusing, but and I have different power of attorney forms. I'm just trying to see if I can find it quick enough because I want to value your time. But there's advance directives for mental health that go over what psychotropic meds don't you want to receive. So this could be part of a living will. So what you're going to do in terms of your practice is market research. Are there any other doulas in your area? In my case, there's none in Madison County at the time of this filming. The closest is in Lexington. And I think her name is Lauren Hunter Smith. She and I are going to be getting together, hopefully, in October, September, later September, October of this year to collaborate on a community event. Those who are on the top, this is a saying from Sandy Adams of Just Love Coffee and Century 21. Those at the top collaborate. Those at the bottom compete. They push people away, trying, I'm better than you and everyone else, blah, blah, blah. That's not this space. This is a sacred space. We should be collaborating and helping one another. So Lauren and I are hopefully going to be collaborating later this year. But for me, I had to look at Berea and Richmond, Kentucky. What are people charging? So go to care.com, register account. You could actually give them, I actually do have a real account with them, but for this one, I did give them a fake email address and a password. Shame on me. But look up what the rates are. Take into account any certifications above and beyond what the end-of-life doula, which is a graduation certificate. I'm not trying to pick on you. Look at that. Know your own value. Look at how much do you have to make, because remember the work year is 2,080. On the normal end, if you want to say 50 weeks, it's 2,000 hours. How much would you like to make per year? Divide that by 2,000 hours or 2080. That could give you an hourly rate if you want to go that direction. I strongly encourage you, if you go down that direction, compare it to what other people are charging, because in the doula field, if you take what you were making, divide by 2080 or 2,000, or what you'd like to make, divide by 2080 or 2,000, either your rate's going to be lower than what you could be charging or higher than what the market will bear. So look at what the competition's charging. Understand that if you do not have any ability to provide medical support, you are the equivalent of a companion. I don't want to minimize a companion in any way, shape, or form. You have specialized training to do education. Many do not have. That's very valuable. But you have to look at this, they're paying out of pocket. Do you want to do charge by the hour? Have packages? I strongly recommend packages. Look at sliding scale. You can do a mixture and understand that whatever you do is trial and error that you can experiment with and down the road change your mind. If you watch one of my earlier videos when I went over my pricing, I changed my mind. Michelle, one of my classmates from my DLM said I am not charging the right amount for staff development. And talking to Ted Hopkins, one of I really love you, Ted, in Berea, how many hours did you spend preparing that presentation? And like, for example, I will be teaching 2 1-hour classes. So a total of 2 hours, one and done. One's coming up in October. It's literally 1 hour and then I'm done. But it took me 2 hours to develop the presentation. So that was 3 hours of my time for a 1-hour class. So here for my creating a 60 to 90-minute presentation with the appropriate handouts is $250 per presentation. So that you're aware, I was originally telling people 50 to 75 bucks. That's a major change. And Ted is saying I should be charging per person. We'll see, because I'm working with Nurse D. Porsche. I don't want to mispronounce her name. I am looking at becoming a continuing education provider either through her or Teresa Sanderson. I think I do have to look at economics. Nurse Porsche can get me the full scope with a more economical benefit, and given where I'm at, I need that. Uh, Remember, we're talking sliding scale, and that goes for me as well to a degree. So where we're ending, and I'm just looking, this is a longer video than I anticipated, so I do thank you for your time. But you're going to come up with your rate. You're going to see what people are willing to accept in your area, but don't give up. If people are walking away, you do need to ask yourself, do you need to lower your price? Maybe you need to do a sliding scale. Talk to somebody, reach out to me. I don't mind brainstorming with anybody. I have done that for the past few years, no charge. If it gets to the point where you're asking me, gee, that's so much, I need to start charging, I will let you know, but you'll get a certain portion for no charge to begin with before we even get to that point. If you don't take advantage of it, your loss, not mine. Uh, and on that note, I'm helping one of my friends get his first book published. I don't mind helping people when I'm able to for free. I'm not saying I could do that for free for everybody, just putting it out there because I know Jose, he did contract me to get his book published. And that was a different journey, so to speak, including book cover and a lot of other work. But in ending, this is a sacred journey. Don't give up. If you're running into roadblocks, ask for help. Myself, if you're an IDLM student, they have monthly mentorship that's free. There's the movement, which is their social media tool, which is free. We interact, we share, we're a family, we help everyone bloom, we don't compete, we collaborate. You could do this. Don't be afraid. We're dying every moment. Don't wait until you're dead and say, gee, I could have done this. Go and bloom. Thank you, and God bless.